Hello guys and welcome to my new video, and today we're going to be looking at the proposed healer changes for patch 10.17, and we're going to be specifically looking at Restoration Druid and Mistweaver Monk because they have some new talents that are being completely reworked or some completely new talents emerging in order to make those classes more interesting and fun to play in the next patch. What you can see right now, these are the proposed changes to Restoration Druid. You can see some new talents or PvP talents emerging into PvE. You can see Mana Thief for Mistweavers being redesigned to back to the old good days. Again, I didn't play Mr. Pandari, but you can let me know what it felt like before. So there's quite a few substantial changes in order to make these healers feel more appealing, because a lot of these talents are going to try and battle some of the issues that these classes have or specs have, both in Mythiclus and raid situations. And we're going to start off with Restoration Druid and then move on to Mistweaver Monk. So let's go and get started. So what you see right now is my Restoration Druid on the PTR. Again, big disclaimer, this is very early in PTR cycle for 10.17. Anything can change, but right now you can see there's been new talents introduced. Grove Guardians, so you can see wild synthesis have been synchronized with Grove Guardians. Again, it's easy to see what they're trying to do here. This is the Nourish spot. Not a lot of people are picking Nourish. I don't know about PvP, I don't really do PvP, but Nourish has been a pretty much an unwanted talent in a lot of content, and Blizzard is trying to fix some of those talents that are not really popular, or try to introduce new talents that are going to fix some issues, specifically spot healing or specifically burst healing. And I think Grove Guardians is going to be an interesting combination because they're going to synchronize completely with something like Master Shapeshifter, which has been moved from the PvP section to PvE section, which has been a trend for a really long time in Dragonflight, because they've done this multiple times to other healers. For example, Restoration Shaman got Tidebringer, which was extremely popular when it first got introduced. It was very successful. I think people really liked the extra emphasis on chain heal. So they're trying to do the same thing with Master Shapeshifter, because guess what? It's less work for the developers. It's already in the game, except it's only for PvP. Let's bring it to PvE. A lot of people are either going to hate this or love this right now, because there's a lot of people who don't like playing Resto Druid and Shapeshifting. And there's a lot of people out there, especially in Mythiclus content, who love optimizing their DPS because they want to go into cat form or moonkin form and provide additional damage by min-maxing this. Right now, I feel on live servers, not looking at Master Shapeshifter or anything like that, I don't think there's a lot of incentive to go into different forms, especially if you're pugging content, especially if you're doing something like Tyrannical Weeks, because it doesn't feel rewarding enough in terms of the additional damage that you provide a lot of the times, because you do have to sacrifice GCDs to go into damage, and all you're doing is providing damage. You're not getting anything out of that. With Master Shapeshifter, for example, you can go into cat form, rip Ferocious Bite, and Maim deals additional 60% damage and generates mana. So you're not only dealing additional damage, but you're getting mana back, so that makes it feel a little bit more worth. But because Season 2 is extremely bursty in terms of the amount of spot healing you need to provide. For example, in order to provide spot healing as Resto Druid, if someone takes damage, you can't even use Swiftmend unless you have a certain hot on that person. To showcase that Resto Druid healing in Mythiclus is all about preparation. If you're only healing people when they're already really low HP as Resto Druid, you have failed. You have to anticipate damage, you have to pre-hot and things like that, and therefore it makes DPSing or form shifting extremely difficult to do, especially in Season 2 because of the HPS patterns. Now, there are certain bosses, there are certain trash bags who do nothing in terms of HPS requirements, and you can go into multiple forms and optimize that, but you need to know the dungeons, you need to know when to do that. Master Shapeshifter is going to give you an additional incentive, and I'm all for it. I love shapeshifting as Resto Druid, and I think min-maxing DPS is really, really fun. One of the things that makes Resto Druid or provides a high skill ceiling in Mythiclus, trying to optimize that damage. But the problem persists. You still have the issue of, okay, I get additional benefit of going into these different forms and dealing damage, but I can't do that. There's so much preparation that I need to do. There's so much bursty dungeons out there. I need to make sure I keep hots on everyone and things like that. And I think this is why they introduced Grove Guardian, because I think this is going to be relatively, they're gonna go well together in terms of both of the talents. I don't think it's going to be overly difficult to pick up these two new talents, especially in Mythiclus. We'll have to see if there's going to be additional changes. I'm not going to talk about the best talent builds. This is very, very early in the PTR cycle, but Grove Guardians, you can see here, summons a treant which will immediately cast Swiftmend on your current target, healing for a specific amount. The treant will cast Nourish on that target or nearby ally periodically, healing for a specific amount. Last 15 seconds, has 3 charges. 3 charges, last 15 seconds, 20-second recharge. You can technically have a very high uptime of this depending on how you use it. If you use all 3 at the given moment, you're not, again, the uptime is going to be a lot lower, but maybe you did it for a specific reason. So let's use the clown car right now. You can use all of these treants, and they're going to be casting, again, they're going to be casting their heals. They cannot move, so if you use your treants and there's a mob pack that's going to pass, you're going to pull aggro. So you have to be very, very careful about how to use it. But generally speaking, again, it's quite cool. You have an army of people, of treants that help you, or guardians that help you to heal. And again, the recharge rate is quite fast. You have 3 charges, and I did pick an additional talent into Wild Synthesis, where treants from Grove Guardians also cast Wild Growth immediately when summoned, healing 5 ballots within 40 yards. Now, what I haven't tested yet, the Wild Growth that these treants cast, again, you can see right away, they cast Swiftman and then they cast Wild Growth. The Wild Growth that's being cast from them seems to be less impactful than the Wild Growth that you can cast as yourself. I haven't tested if the Wild Growth or heals from these treants stack with your mastery, and it doesn't seem like the Swiftman that's being cast from your treants affect or apply Growth Tending. So this is something that I've seen so far, but anything can change because, again, some of these there's a lot of bugs and issues that I've seen so far in PTR, but the fun part about this is how you can synchronize with this. For example, you can pick up Master Shapeshifter and go into your cat form or moonkin form, depending which one is going to be the best. We'll have to see. Let's say you go into your cat form and you already sacrificed a GCD to go into cat form. You're ready to DPS, you want to provide additional damage. Let's say you're DPSing and someone takes damage and you're like, oh no, I need to go out of my form, I need to start healing them, I don't want to do that. You activate your Guardian, and your Guardian is going to heal them up. Depending on who needs healing, it's going to cast Wild Growth and things like that. And you can go back into DPSing. And I think this is exactly what Blizzard is trying to do. They're trying to give you an option of, if you do end up enjoying this Master Shapeshifter build where you go into different forms, we're going to give you tools which will allow you to stay in that form for longer to provide additional damage. If you don't like shapeshifting or things like that, and you don't care about providing additional damage or whatever, that's fine, because I think Grove Guardians also serve a really important purpose, especially for new Resto Druids coming into something like Mythic Plus environment. They're doing a dungeon for the first time and everyone took damage. You're behind in healing, you cast your Wild Growth, you cannot catch up, you cast your Grove Guardians to provide that additional spot healing with Swiftman and additional AoE healing with Wild Growth. So I think this is going to be one of those, oh crap, I messed up, I don't have my HOTS, I'm not preparing for that AoE damage, I'm not preparing for that spot healing damage, I'm gonna use my Grove Guardians to help me out here, because that's one of the biggest issues of Resto Druid right now. When you don't prepare for that healing and you get caught out, whether it's going to be because you don't know the dungeon or whether it's going to be because you were in different form providing damage, I think Grove Guardians is going to be something that's going to help you out immensely. I'm not looking at the numbers, I'm looking at the intention, and the intention in my eyes is clear. And again, you have to keep in mind the way that the recharge works in World of Warcraft. If you do end up using all the treants or Grove Guardians at the exact same time, all 3 at the same time, the recharge rate is only going to be 1 at a time, so your uptime of this is going to be a lot lower, depending on how you're going to approach this, both in raiding and Mythic Plus, depending if you need, again, if you need burst healing. I like the fact that they're trying to battle spot healing and the battle AoE healing for Resto Druids and make it a lot easier. I'd love to know your opinions about this. I specifically want to know your opinion about Master Shapeshifter. Do you shift forms in Mythic Plus, or do you just focus on healing? Do you enjoy that playstyle? Because I know this is going to split the community in some way. I know there's a lot of people who don't like shapeshifting, and there's a lot of people who really enjoy the min-maxy version of Resto Druid DPS, because Resto Druid DPS, if you really want to min-max it to an absolute incredible potential, is one of the hardest DPS. Like, Resto Druid DPS rotation can be harder than some of the pure DPS class rotations if you really want to min-max it. Do you enjoy that concept? Let's go and have a look at Mistweaver Monk. Now let's go to Mistweaver changes, and we have to look at the tooltip here, because the in-game tooltips on PTR do not reflect the inner workings of all the spells. Like Mana Tea, for example, has been redesigned now. If you played Mr. Pandaria, you probably know what it's like. I did not play Mr. Pandaria, I don't know what Mana Tea was like back then, but people keep telling me about this. So for every 25,000 mana you gain 1 stack of Mana Tea with a chance equal to your critical strike chance to generate 1 extra stack. Activate to consume 1 stack of Mana Tea per 0.5 seconds to restore 3000 mana. Again, there's going to be a channel to this, and reduce the mana cost of your, and then you're going to get the old Mana Tea effect back as well, which reduces the mana cost of your spells by 50% for 1 second per stack of Mana Tea consumed. So the longer you're going to channel this ability, the more mana you're going to get back, and the longer the buff you're going to get. I'm going to showcase this in game, because right now it can be really hard to visualize. If you didn't play Mr. Pandaria, it can be cast while moving, but movement speed is reduced by 40% while channeling. Again, we'll talk about the life cycles has also been changed to work with Mana Tea in terms of getting more stacks. So Vivify has 25% chance to cause your next Rising, Sunking, or Enveloping Mist to generate 1 stack of Mana Tea. If you keep casting Vivify, you're going to get this buff, Life Cycles buff, and then your next Rising, Sunking, or Enveloping Mist is going to generate 1 stack of Mana Tea. And then Enveloping Mist and Rising Sunking also has a 25% chance to cause your next Vivify to generate 1 stack of. It goes back and forth. It's not really difficult. It might be difficult to understand after reading this, but if you play the game, you know exactly how to do this in order to generate more mana. Outside of these changes in terms of reworking your mana completely to the good old days of Mr. Pandaria, Spirit of the Crane has been removed, which a lot of people who enjoy that fist weaving style are asking why. Let's go in game and look at these changes. Now, this is my beautiful Mistweaver Monk on PTR 10.17, and again, this is the talent changes they introduced. There's quite a few changes here if you really think about this. Again, don't look at the talents that I picked out because I'm just memeing around, I'm messing around with a bunch of different things, but you can see, again, Mana has been redesigned. That's not really going to showcase here, but in terms of other talents, there's been, again, Spirit of the Crane is no longer here. It used to be in this spot, and it's kind of gone. A lot of people are kind of a little bit anxious about this, so I'm going to showcase how Mana is working right now in terms of the stacks. I did pick out life cycles here. You can see here I do have life cycles, and I did have a couple of issues in terms of how it works on PTO. There seems to be quite a few bugs and things like that. So how exactly does Mana work? You can see right now the Mana is not usable because I don't have any stacks. So it all depends on how many stacks you have in order to optimize how much mana you get, in order to optimize how long the buff for mana reduction is going to last. We're going to burn as much mana as possible and use life cycles to try and get multiple stacks here just to showcase it. So right now I have 2 stacks. I'm casting Vivifies to try and get a life cycles buff. You'll see it on the top right hand corner. I have life cycles and can cast Enveloping Mist here and get an additional stack. And we're just gonna burn as much mana as possible, try and get around 10 stacks just to showcase how Mana works. So if you're doing a raid boss, if you know there's going to be downtime available, you might be like, this is a perfect time to use Mana, because the channel time, depending on how many stacks you have and how long you want to channel for, can be insanely long. Like, you can be casting this for a really long time. So you need to really anticipate or know when to optimize this. Again, we're gonna try and get 10 stacks. We have 10 stacks right now, so we're going to click on this and it's going to channel. Again, you can see it here, it's channeling, and the movement is reduced, but you're getting mana back, and right after the channel ends, you'll get this buff. Mana cost of spells reduced by 50%. In order to optimize this, there's definitely going to be optimization or min-maxing required in terms of when you want to use this, how long you want to channel this for. Can I channel this for 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds because I have so many stacks? Or maybe there's going to be parts where you can't really optimize this all that well. Generally speaking, this is a good change in my opinion. It does require additional optimization compared to the old Mana because you could just press Mana and get that mana cost reduction and you could just cast. It is good that Blizzard is focusing on Mistweaver Monk, because Mistweaver Monk or Monk in general can be regarded as the forgotten class because very few people play it. It definitely doesn't have the best community perception when it comes to Mythic Plus content, even though Mistweaver Monk's HPS and DPS are actually really not bad. I think generally speaking, Mistweaver Monk is an underdog class. I think you can make Mistweaver Monk work really well. When it comes to raiding, Mistweaver Monk is in a weird position because depending on which build you're playing, especially if you're playing something like Clouded Focus build, you still want to stay in melee because you want to provide additional damage and you get extra mana back from Spirit of the Crane. Spirit of the Crane has been removed in 10.17, keep that in mind. You still stay in melee, but you have this caster type of playstyle, and it's kind of like an in-between position that you have as a Mistweaver Monk depending on which build you're playing, especially in raid situations. And I'd love to hear your opinion if you're a Mistweaver Monk. Again, the 5 Mistweaver Monks that are playing this game right now, leave a comment below in terms of how you enjoy Mistweaver Monk in raids, how you're enjoying that Clouded Focus build, how do you play your Monk in raid situations, because in Mythic Plus, I really enjoy that Phalanx Stomp. I enjoy the emphasis on Phalanx Stomp. I enjoy the fact that you can heal through your damage. Those aspects of Mistweaver Monk are always extremely appealing to me when it comes to Mythic Plus environment. And of course, Mistweaver Monk has multiple different talents and talent builds when it comes to Mythic Plus, when it comes to Mythic raiding in terms of optimizing your damage and healing, which only makes the class more interesting. Are these changes for Mana going to be good enough to improve the community perception of a Mistweaver Monk or make them more strong? The Mana changes, they're going to make the class a little more difficult to play in order to optimize it correctly, but I think that only makes the class more interesting. I'm not 100% sold on the fact that the channel time of Mana can be insanely long depending on how many stacks. I'm not looking at numbers at all because the numbers can change at any given moment. It's the intention that matters. But when it comes to Mythic Plus, is it good enough to create a better community perception to Mistweaver Monk? Absolutely not, because at the bare minimum, Mistweaver Monk needs to have Battle Res or Bloodlust, and I say this over and over and over again. The fact that Holy Paladin got Battle Res at the start of Dragonflight was a big kick in the face to Mistweaver Monk, because Mistweaver Monk is one of those melee healers like Holy Paladin, but they did not receive any of the big utility items. Don't get me wrong, Monk has a lot of utility. There's a lot of buttons that you can press to help your party to survive or min-max or avoid damage. There's a lot of things you can provide. On top of that, you provide 5% physical debuff, which honestly is not all that great in Mythic Plus, where the meta is all about casters. So Monk, in order to climb in that community perception in terms of getting invited, needs some big utility ticket items. It needs battle res, it needs bloodlust, or something along those lines, because the fact that they nerf battle res in terms of engineering, and engineering battle res feels so useless, does not bode well for any healer, does not provide that kind of utility. I think it's great that Blizzard is looking at Mistweaver Monk. They've done that in the past. They looked at Mistweaver Monk, they added some improvements, they added some changes to their class, but they were not big enough to actually change the community perception. Mistweaver Monk in general is one of the least played healers in the game right now, and it needs some huge changes to make it perceived as OP, so people flock to the class and experience the beauty of Mistweaver Monk, because it is a fun class to play. But if you create a healer like Holy Paladin right now in 10.15, which has button for every single scenario in terms of Mythic Plus, in terms of raid, he has so much burst healing, he has spot healing, it just feels really bad when you go to other healers and you try to play those healers and you feel like you're lacking a bunch of buttons. How does Blizzard fix that? It needs to have some big improvements for almost every single healer to make them comparable to Holy Paladin. That's my general consensus on this class. I'm happy that they're trying to make some changes to Mistweaver Monk, to Resto Druid, because they do need it, and they need some help, especially in Mythic Plus environment when dealing with spot healing and things like that. Again, Mistweaver Monk can do good spot healing depending on how much mana you want to invest into it. Good changes so far. Need a lot more in order to compete with that Holy Paladin, especially when it comes to that Mythic Plus environment. Let me know how you feel about this, and I'll see you in my next video.